Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
All right, good evening. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. This is the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. We are starting our meeting at 5:49. We have 4 trustees currently in attendance. We have Daniel Cassidy, Shelley Hamilton, Chris Landles-Cobb, and myself, Rachel Litwack. Ryan O'Neill is not present at this moment. We are expecting him later. We also have our superintendent here, and we have Chris Carson, our CPO, here in attendance from our cabinet. And we are at our school district office at 100 Shaw Drive today. And with that, I will get our meeting started. The first item we have is closed session. I'm going to identify our items of closed session. We have conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 RVTA. And with that, I will take public comment, but there is no public here, so moving on, I will recess to closed session at 5:50. Good. All right, thank you everybody for being here. We are back from closed session, and our first item on our agenda is procedural. We have our Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, sorry, a report out from closed session. There was no action taken in closed session. Now moving on. Procedural items, Pledge of Allegiance and Democratic Reflection. I don't generally do a democratic reflection, but given that today is 9/11, I just thought it would be nice to have a moment of silence in memory of all the people who lost their lives and all of the workers that, just a moment of silence. Thank you. And with that, if you would like to join us in the pledge, stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We need to adopt the agenda and time allocations. Did anybody have any changes or things that we needed to adjust? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I will make a motion to adopt the agenda and the time allocations as presented.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. All right. We have an agenda for tonight. Our first item is staff recognition. Today we get to have a recognition ceremony for retiring district employee Bob Gambini.
Bob Gambini. We are so excited to celebrate your 17 years of service, and Principal Christy Fish is going to say a few words. Yeah, turn and look at it. So Bob is like everybody's favorite uncle, the best, kindest person. He never speaks an ill word of anyone, even if they might deserve it. Is just the guy that you go to if you need support, if you want something done. He's been with our district for 17 years and always helps us out. So Bob, we are so excited that you get to spend time now with Teresa. And your beautiful family. So from our Ross Valley family to the Campanini family, thank you so much for everything.
You're welcome. No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Have a little something for you, which is a wordle, which is a collection of words that some of your friends and colleagues that came to mind for them when they think about who you are. I'm just going to read a few of them. Friendly, selfless, family, generous, humble, heartfelt, flexible, reliable, kind, dedicated. These we have a theme going there, so you are so appreciated.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, and the staff's been working with me well. We appreciate it. It's been a great experience all the way through. Been rough and rocky, but we made it through.
All right, here we go.
Oops.
There we are.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Our next item on our agenda is the welcome and recognition of district staff, newly tenured, certificated staff, and employee milestones.
Awesome. So this is always a joyous evening when we get to recognize our employees, and we're going to have our principals help with introducing. And we're going to start with our new staff that is new to the Ross Valley School District. So Amanda from Brookside, you have some folks to introduce.
I'm very excited to introduce Patty Barros, our resource teacher, who I don't think is here this evening. Laura Enzendorfer, our speech pathologist. Rachel Kimball, our new second grade teacher. She's right over here. And Elisa Lamp, our TK teacher, who is also here.
All right, at Hidden Valley, I don't think either of the people are here, but Jim Fagundes is teaching PE at both Hidden Valley and Manor. And then Juan Carlos Sarto Rodriguez is our new building manager.
Okay, I'm pleased to welcome Maureen Jensen. She's a third grade teacher at Manor. And we have the lovely Amelia Stoker here in the room. All right, and new to White Hill this year, and I don't see them in the audience, but Heather Boucher, who's joining us as our speech pathologist. Barrett Bauer, who's joining as a new 8th grade English teacher. Mary Faith Sarasoli, who's joining us as a 7th, 8th Spanish teacher.
Yes.
And Sarah Ferner, who's joining us as a 6th grade math and science teacher.
And then Stephanie Ham, 7th and 8th grade math teacher, and who's here in attendance, White Hill alumni, Ember Crick as our Peter O'Reilly. Nice to see you.
Well, welcome to Ross Valley. We're so very, very glad that you are here and hope you stay a very long time. And so next up, we have our newly tenured teachers in the Ross Valley School District, and we'll go back to Brookside.
Amazing. It's an honor to introduce Sammy Hunley, 4th grade.
At Hidden Valley, we are super thrilled to have Cindy Credo in TK.
At White Hill, we have Jamie Evans and Susan Gallagher.
And also,
Yeah.
and Joanna Hatfield and Alicia Solis, our school psychologist.
I also want to thank John Baker for also being newly tenured here at Ross Valley. And his counterpart, Mary Claire. We're lucky to have both of you plus the newly tenured teachers. And I just want to extend a big debt of gratitude for our new teachers as well. It's really nice to have you join our team, having been pretty new to the district. I am really loving it here, and I hope you feel as welcomed as I do. I'm excited to kind of go on this journey right alongside you all.
We have one individual also newly tenured, multiple sites in the realm of wellness. Brookside and Manor social worker, Janet Mercer. Awesome.
All right, next up, we are going to honor and appreciate employees for their milestone years of service. And Amanda is going to share those who have reached 5 years in the Ross Valley School District.
We have Autumn Arbery, social worker at White Hill. Fran. Virginia Foxton. Hamilton, also 6th grade core, but math science. Priscilla Frankie, campus supervisor at Manor. Marjorie McDonald, school psychologist at Hidden Valley and Lake and Mr. Ben Tunney, 6th grade math and science.
All right, and on to 10 years of service in the Ross Valley School District.
All right, 10 years of service.
Well, we're going to start with one of White Hill's own, Carrie Adriatico. We've got Susan Artigo. Julie Beret. Kara Chambers. Kristen Coble. With us tonight, Joanne Desano. And Katie Drake.
We also have Sam Gill, SCC aide from Brookside. Wall Grant, 2nd grade teacher, Manor. Heather Levi, admin assistant at Brookside. Another admin assistant, Lynn Marion. Stacy Walden, 5th grade teacher at Brookside. And Peg Menikos, principal.
Amazing. All right, we are counting by fives. Is that first grade? 15 years of service.
15 years, okay, let's see. Emma Beauchamp. Debbie Tavana, 5th grade teacher. Eric Desmond, middle school PE. Erica C, 2nd grade teacher.
All right, 20 years.
Right, 20 years.
What?
Alright, let's see who this is. Barbara Forshee, 4th grade. I don't see it here, but we all know Sean Nolan, grounds and maintenance.
Wow.
And somebody who, when I was a baby here, helped me, Tim Smith, RSP. And is it your birthday?
Yes.
20 years, huh?
Alrighty, so I think one of the things that makes a staff really special is the diversity and experience. So we've got some of our new folks that are brand new to the profession or brand new to our district, and they bring in a fresh set of eyes to see what we see with a new lens. And I think it's important to listen to those folks. And on the other end of that spectrum, we've got people that know the history, they know the families, they know the stories, and they've got tons of experience to go along with it. I think this is a really important thing in any staff and any, functioning organization, is to have some new folks that we're welcoming in and some folks that we really hold in high esteem because of the experience they bring to us. We've got 3 people tonight with 25 years of experience. Wow. Kudos to you all. So I'm going to ask you to please stand up because we want to give each and every one of you like a really heartfelt thank you for your service. We're going to start with Mary Accord. Can you stand up? Thanks, Mary. 25 years. It's almost enough time to have like a kid come through and their kids come through. How about Eric Brandt? Can you stand up? Eric, 25 more to go, bud.
That's it. That's it.
And our last one, Nicole Stewart, please stand up. Thanks, folks.
It's really an honor to be able to acknowledge everyone. And thank you all for being here, and thank you for coming to appreciate your colleagues as well. And for bringing your families. We're very, very appreciative. And now we celebrate, yes?
Yes.
So we have a
Take a short break.
Can someone bring the letters in?
Yeah, just right here.
so now we
5.
All right, and we are returning from our short recess there to celebrate all of our employees. And we are moving on. The next item is our enrollment update. And that looks like it is Tyler Graf. Oh, did I miss something? Oh, yes, I did. Sorry, excuse me. Jumped to the wrong section. Sorry. We were on E, communication, which is public comment regarding items not on the open session agenda. Do we have any public comments?
I guess that's me.
Yes, go ahead. Just make sure you please state your name and affiliation.
So to hear, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read. That's okay. Hello, everybody. Is it on? It's on. Okay. Hi, my name is Melissa Wallstrom. I'm really glad to be here tonight. Thank you for letting me have a comment. First, I just need to say that today's the 23rd anniversary of 9/11, and we remember those we lost and find strength in coming together as a community. And so today I'm coming as a volunteer for Measure B, the Measure B campaign. That's, as you may know, the ballot measure to provide essential facility upgrades to support safety and quality education in the TAM Unified High School District. We have aging and deteriorating classrooms, labs, and school facilities that need urgent upgrades, and Measure B will do this. I'm a parent of 3 here in the district. I've had 2 go through Ross Valley, and now one's graduated from Archie Williams, one's in Archie Williams, and one's still at White Hill. I'm really committed to this community. I firmly believe in our schools. I love our schools, and I believe we need to do what we can to support them. With ballots being mailed out on October 7th, we're heavily focused on outreach, and we want our Ross Valley School District families and the community as a whole to understand the facts and implications of Measure B. I live behind Brookside School. I hear the students laughing and playing during recess. I think about them, and I think about my children and their experiences at Archie Williams and the amazing opportunities that they've had so far in academics and sports clubs and the wellness support. If Measure B fails, these families at Brookside and with young children will be heavily impacted. There would most likely be significant reductions in academic programs, student support services, and teaching positions. It just will not be good. We understand that it's not just our families with school-age children that need to know the facts of Measure B. On Monday, our campaign met with a small group of San Anselmo business owners, and we heard a few important things that we've heard before. Misinformation still endures. For example, that Measure B doesn't offer a senior exemption. State law does not allow exemptions for school facility bonds, and bonds are the only practical way to fund school improvements since the state does not help with that as much, if at all. The other misinformation that still exists is that the estimated cost for taxpayer will be so high. When the cost to taxpayers is based on the assessed value of properties, so longtime residents and owners of less expensive homes will pay the least. So we have our work cut out for us. We ask for your help. We ask for for board trustees' help and our community to help us get the facts out there, to talk to people, to direct them to yesonbtuhsd.org website to learn more. Please help us bolster support, help us help our students of the future to have what they need and what they deserve, functioning and accessible buildings and learning spaces for all. Help us help our community, because having schools that are among the best in the state and the nation help all community and business members. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, and our next item is correspondence and communication to the board. We have a couple items listed there, so thank you for everyone who contacted us. We have received and read your communications. Our next item is F, presentation and/or action items. The first item here is the Public Employee Performance Evaluation titled Superintendent Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. All right, Tyler.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is kind of an extension of the conversation we had at the board retreat, where you gave me some initial feedback on my annual goals, or the annual goals for the district. There are 6 goals that you're going to see today. 3 of them are directly tied to our LCAP, our strategic plan for the district, and then 3 are kind of the priorities that I've had moving forward through the year. So I'll go over each of the 6 goals, some of the tasks associated with the goals, and some of the accountability measures that I'll be self-evaluating and then asking for feedback from you on. So the first one is all around learning teams and priority standards. Julie did an excellent job with the principals on Tuesday talking a little bit about this. Actually starting to create a common understanding of the professional learning teams and how to kind of build leadership throughout our teachers. We're gonna have more data this year. This is something that, again, Julie is working really hard on, having iReady assessments across the district so teachers can kind of assess where their kids are being successful, where they might be struggling, and then have some interventions along the way to support students kind of using a plan, do, study, act, or PDSA cycle. We're gonna monitor professional learning teams, so our principals are gonna hold teachers accountable for doing some of the things that we're gonna be tight on, while allowing some autonomy for folks to be looser on how they build their learning teams. We've also established a PD plan. That actually slide is incorrectly linked. I can share that with you all later, but we worked with Melina to get a PD plan together where we have exactly how this is all gonna roll out during our Wednesdays. And one of our goals is to have identified priority standards in all of our areas, starting with math, and then we'll move into language arts. We're gonna start with math because that's kind of where our data needs the most support and our students need the most support. And this will help actually inform how our report card looks moving forward as well. So we're gonna reform the way our report card looks. And then really, our teachers I've been very impressed with how teachers collaborate across the district and within the schools. And what we're trying to do is just kind of create some boundaries around how to best collaborate and focus on student learning. And I think what we'll do with our professional learning teams will help us get there.
How are you going to measure that? Can I ask questions? Am I allowed to? Or do I wait?
You can ask questions now. If Tyler's in mind, if he prefers to ask at the end of it, that's fine too.
Yeah,
Just
that's fine.
Preference.
I think that, part of the way we're going to measure it is actually having a new report card. We might be able to do that for next year. That will all be informed by the priority standards that folks identify this year. So you can measure that through the agendas that we have, teacher feedback on the work. A new report card is evidence of that. And we can do surveys for professional learning teams to see how behavior and or beliefs have changed around that. And that might be the best way to actually evaluate something. Some of these things are really adaptive changes, not technical changes. And those adaptive changes are probably going to necessitate us doing some survey work.
Cool.
So the next one is high impact instructional practices. So some of this is actually tied in to that first goal. This is all about academic equity, making sure all of our students are achieving at a high level, regardless of their background or the language they speak at home, or their parents' socioeconomic status. We want to make sure all of our students are able to achieve at high levels. We're going to implement components of the Racial Equity Action Plan that was built out last year by the Parent Guardian Equity Task Force. And we're going to use the Equity Task Force to hold us accountable to that plan and prioritize some of the actions in that plan. Kind of tied back to that first goal, we're going to identify some high impact instructional practices, particularly around teacher clarity. Because that when you have a priority standard, you can be clear about what standard you're teaching, and when students are more clear on what they're supposed to be learning, they learn it better. We're going to try to create a document that Mary Claire actually helped Tam High School District come up with that has 5 different components, one of them being teacher clarity, where we can kind of have a playbook where each teacher can kind of see some of the high impact instructional practices, and over the next few years we'll start implementing some of those. This year we're focused on teacher clarity. What did you work on last year? There's one to the left.
Learning partnerships.
Learning partnerships.
So a lot
this
of that
is
was focused around the Zaretta Hammond work.
come on in.
Hello.
Classroom walkthroughs, evidence of the Racial Equity Action Plan being implemented, and then PD plans and agendas. Those are all kind of what we'll be paying attention to. Really, this is when you walk into a classroom, do you see some of these strategies being used with students? So that's gonna necessitate that we are clear about what our expectations are. So for instance, I could tell John and Mary Claire, hey, I'm coming over to White Hill with Julia. One of the things we're looking for is teacher clarity. These are some of the strategies we're looking for, and we can go into the classrooms and see those in action.
This is great. How will you swing from the performative aspects of this work to the actual impact and sustainability and outcome-oriented things that can result from this type of teaching? How will you measure those things?
Go on. Yeah, sure.
I think a lot of that is in the data that we're collecting. And so, I mean, really, this year is a big year for Ross Valley in terms of assessments. Having this kind of norm diagnostic assessment for ELA and mathematics that we have already, we extended the window because it's really hard to get everything going at the beginning of the year. But by the end of next week, every student in first grade through 8th grade will have taken both a reading and a mathematics assessment. And what comes from that is they give you really clear information about strengths and weaknesses, but not only that, you're also provided with next instructional steps. And they'll even group students for you so that you can see, okay, I've got this group of kids over here, and where they're struggling is with, say, informational text and comprehending informational text. And in another group, maybe they're stuck somewhere on that phonics progression, and we need to revisit some of those letter sounds. And the same thing for mathematics. And then kindergarten is actually taking the assessment in another week or two because we delay kindergarten for developmental reasons.
Yeah, and that's really great. I think that's a wonderful way to go about it. One of the things that I think about, and of course I just play and observe on Google, but the English language learners and how their academic performance can sometimes be misinterpreted as perhaps a disability, right, for example. And so how do we ensure that they're caught up in the deficit of previous educational experiences coming into our schools as well? How do we, grouping them in groups of abilities is really a great way to do it, but at the same time, some of those kids are so far behind. And I just want to recognize the challenges we have, and I know that you're on top of it, and I look forward to seeing how we can really elevate those kids particularly, through this process. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think it's something that we name in our administrative meetings a lot of. That is a group of students that we're focused on and concerned about, and also a place where we're putting a lot of our energy.
Yeah.
Particularly, we have a team that meets every month, our MTSS team, which is our intervention and English language development teachers. And they're pretty amazing, and they're really kind of engaged in this action research around what are you doing at your site, what's working, where are you seeing progress, what can we transfer over to here, and also recognizing that when you're working with students who are learning English, that you need to make sure that all of their learning experiences aren't rote, because they've got those creative minds and that critical thinking, and you really have to make sure that they're getting those stretches that they need as well. If you can project yourself into learning, finding yourself in another country and what that would be like with everything that you know here, but not being able to express all of that knowledge.
Right. Okay.
So this first goal around learning teams and priority standards is really about the teacher process of what are the students going to learn? How do we know they're going to learn it? What do we do if they don't learn it? And then this is really kind of what's the culture and climate of the classroom? What are the instructional strategies we use to get students there? And then this third goal is really around attendance. We've talked about the budget quite a bit. This one's more technical on our end, a little more technical implementation, but on the parents' end, maybe a little bit more adaptive change of not taking a 5-day weekend over Labor Day, but just taking a 3-day weekend over Labor Day, and things like that. So regular board updates, which you all have asked for, will be part of the evidence here. We'll be tracking this and sharing it at A-Team with our principals, and principals will share out what's working and what's not working at their sites, with the understanding that elementary sites have a little bit different experience than middle school, so we won't be comparing that as much. The principals have done a phenomenal job at back to school night already, kind of messaging this thing, being really clear with parents around this. Teachers, when I popped into teachers' rooms during back to school night, they've been doubling down on that. So later in October, I'll send a newsletter from me talking a little bit about it, and I'll probably do a few communications throughout the year. We've got an attendance action plan that we're working on about when we send letters home to folks, how do we hold people accountable with SARB, all of that stuff. So really, attendance is one of those things, even just by naming it and looking at the data frequently, things start to improve. So my hope is that we can improve this by 1% to 2%. 2% is pretty aggressive. I think a realistic goal is right around 1%, but that would be helpful for us for sure. And the next 3 goals are really the ones you've heard me talk about, the priorities that I have. The first one being culture and climate. The little celebration we just had is a prime example of how the culture and climate of this district has been wonderful for a long time, and maintaining some of that, in addition to bringing in more of a collaborative stance with our union partners, and making sure that we're all working towards shared goals with our union and our families and the board and administrative team. Little things like going to have ice cream with the teachers this week and last week. Those things end up mattering more than I thought they would, but they do matter. We're going to have our first monthly RVTA meet and confirm meeting next week, or tomorrow afternoon. And that's an opportunity for us to build a relationship, to air concerns before they become bigger than they need to be, kind of extinguish those small grass fires before they become a wildfire. Supporting the work with the Parent Guardian Equity Task Force. I think that's really important, to make sure our parents of color and our students of color feel like they belong here and they are valued like everyone else in our community. This one's a really tough one to measure. Survey results is going to be a big part of that. Meeting notes, there's some anecdotal kind of street data we could use. I know all of you are already hearing from folks in the community about how things are going. That is some of the evidence that we could use to measure how culture and climate's going.
For surveys, do we use Panorama, Chicks, Healthy Kids? What are the surveys that we use that measure that kind of parent-student?
Panorama is the survey that we've been using, and then Healthy Kids as well every other year, which Eric is the one that
so it's mainly Panorama. That's why I thought it was Panorama. Okay.
We've talked about Youth Truth and maybe making a shift when our contract with Panorama is done, but we need to do a little bit more research about what those differences would be.
Yeah, I think Youth Truth is a little older, maybe, I'm not sure.
We also did a special education parent survey last fall, which we're going to do again, which is getting input, more specific to the special ed program, but that's over 200 children in our district, so. That's that's an earlier process than some of these other surveys. So, it'll be interesting to see, if we're doing some of these modules, not just in the spring.
Another thing we talked about at A-Team too is gratitude and celebration. There's a lot of really good stuff happening across the district. There's really great people in this district. We just need to make sure we're recognizing them. And some of the ways we're doing that is we're starting meetings or ending meetings with gratitude, just so folks can recognize each other, and I think it means a lot. I'm trying the best that I can to write a couple cards to people and send them in the mail when I see someone step up at a meeting or do something exceptional. Little things like that I think go a long way and make people feel valued in the community. So, and then celebrations like we had tonight. My heart is full today after that celebration, and those things are really important. The learning tour, I've talked about this quite a bit. I'll do an update at the next board meeting, and then again, kind of a final update in December. So board reports, those are kind of some of the evidence, notes, calendar invites, kind of my running document what I've accomplished and what I've what I still need to do over the next few months. And there's definitely some patterns that are emerging from this. This has been really helpful. It's been ambitious. I think it's taken a lot of time, but it's been really great to just hear from folks. I know I mentioned already, but the ice cream with staff at lunchtime has been really great to hear. We've been asking 3 questions. What's working? What's not working? And what do you want to see from your new superintendent? And the feedback has been really good. And it's been pretty consistent across the school site. So it's been nice to know that whether you're at Wade Thomas or Manor, you're kind of feeling the same way about the district, both in the pro and in the con.
That's
And then,
good, actually.
yeah,
Short on forks.
yeah. Yeah, staff lounges have no forks. That's a common
Very
thing.
common theme.
Sporks or forks?
Forks.
Forks.
Sports might solve that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get some.
It's silverware overall.
And then really there's two real outcomes here. One is that I have the knowledge of the district, that I am well informed about where we need to go next, and then we actually create a plan to integrate some of this into our LCAP and some of the work that we do moving forward. This slide deck didn't get updated. This is not supposed to say learning tour at the top. It's supposed to say budget. That's what this is, the budget one. So we've talked about this one a lot as well. This is kind of one of my 3 of my big focal areas. Reviewing the current budget, we've done that. I've sat down with Chris. We reviewed that. We're going to have a presentation tonight. We're sitting down with Lindsay, I think next week or the week after, to go over the budget line by line, just for me to understand what it's all about. I've looked at salary schedules, what we've given in terms of compensation. Chris has been a wonderful support here, and I appreciate his patience as I ask question after question after question about it. So thank you, Chris. We're going to really work to make sure the Budget Advisory Committee is hyper transparent for folks. I think Chris did a nice job making it very transparent with giving everyone the full budget and taking a look at it. And we're going to get really specific with a couple of things to wrestle with this year. We're going to look into the viability of a supplemental parcel tax during the May special election. Our goal through the Budget Advisory Committee is to cut $500,000 out of the budget. And that's not to cut it for next year, but it's to have a prioritized list to say if we need to make these cuts next year, we'll work it from the top, the most high priority cut, the one that we can all agree to, down the list to how deep we need to cut. And this is really about working collaboratively with the community, with the board, with our union partners to make sure we both increase revenue and decrease spending. But what I will say about decreasing spending is that this district has done a nice job, and I said this at the last meeting too. Chris and Marcy really did a nice job of keeping this budget tight. So there's not a lot of space here to pull easy cuts from. The cuts we're going to talk about are going to be ones that we're going to have a lot of back and forth debate about. But it's a testament to what Chris and Marcy have done over the last few years. So the evidence here is a prioritized list of budget cuts and a strategic informational campaign for the supplemental parcel tax. So just to quickly review, we've got learning teams and priority standards. We've got high impact instructional strategies, attendance improvement, culture and climate, learning tour, and the budget. So those are the 6 goals that I have for the year. Happy to take feedback on the actions or the metrics or anything else.
I like how succinct you are in approaching this. They're very clear goals, and I like that you've got measurements for where things are going to be at and where you want to be at. So I appreciate that, especially because we're going to have to evaluate you on these things. So it's nice to know, hey, it's not like a long discussion because we'll be like, here's the data. Okay, the metric is met. So it's nice to have that. Appreciate it.
I also think the lack of a surprise behind the potential $500,000 cuts is going to be very transparent. I think that taking the community by surprise or staff by surprise as to what you've decided to cut is not a great way to go about things. And I really like the way that you're already setting it up, that it would be the best surprise is no surprise, right? And I like that transparency that you're laying out for that. Appreciate that.
So it's the last 2 pages, or the last half a page and then the last page. That's where we would be providing you with the.
Yeah, so can I take a look at this? So this is actually the same evaluation tool we're using with all of Cabinet and Principals. So in the attachment, you can see there's a 2x2 feedback here. And the first 4 that are kind of in gray and green, you've got strength areas from the principal or cabinet. So this would be like me self-identifying things that I think are working well. Down below that, this would kind of be from the board, where the board sees strengths, and I can change some of the language here to be more applicable to the board superintendent relationship.
Got it.
On the right side, growth areas. So at the top 2 boxes are really me saying, here's where I feel like I'm doing a good job. Here's where I think I need to improve. And then right under that, it would be the board saying, here's where we think the superintendent's doing a good job. Here's where we think the soup needs to improve. And then the bottom part, this is where you all may have some feedback. What I'll be doing with Julia is giving Julia the opportunity to give me feedback on how I support her. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Or John will have the opportunity to say, I want you at White Hill more often to walk through classrooms. I think that's a thing that would be supportive. Or I need you to just let me handle student discipline without getting in the muck with me. I think I've got it. And that's where that piece would come. So the board can either decide to offer me the chance to say, here's how I need your support, or we cannot use that part. It's fine to go either way with me.
Okay.
Very helpful, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll change the language on that for you all.
Okay.
And there should be 4 times we're talking about my evaluation. We'll have this first time where we're talking about setting goals. We'll do kind of a mid-year update, a winter update, and then final eval. Those other 3 will be closed session, where this one is public.
We need to change the language at the bottom to the 2 as well, just to fit in. So
Yep.
it's appropriate.
Is this something that you would like individually from each of us? Or is this something that would be helpful for us to have a conversation and give it to you as a body?
I think what I'll do is I'll do a self-reflection, add some of the data in there and send it to you all, and then you can decide whether you want to just have an open conversation in closed session, or if you want to kind of have yourself each do your own reflection before coming into that meeting.
Okay.
Happy to go either way.
Right. Thank you.
I also like the informational campaign component, because we're going to need that if we're looking at doing a possible parcel text. That's going to be key.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I'm glad those are priorities. Do we have any other discussion? If not, I will open it up to public comment from the audience. And we have no public comment. Okay. No comment. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then I will move on to our next agenda item. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Tyler. Thank you.
All right. And we have an enrollment update.
Yeah, so this one will be pretty quick. I just wanted to give you all an update where we are. The average attendance has been about 1,643 students. And our current enrollment as of today is 1,683. So we have about 40 students absent each day from school. And right now what that looks like is it's about $75 per student per day that's absent. So when we have about 40 students absent in a day, that's about $3,000 of revenue that the district's not getting each day. You multiply that over the course of 180 school days, you're looking at $540,000 of missed enrollment money. So that's a concern.
You missed attendance.
Missed attendance money. Thank you for clarifying that. So current enrollment as of today, 1683. Average actual attendance is about 1643, so about 40 less than that. And what we saw is that the Thursday and Friday leading up to the 3-day weekend of Labor Day really was a big dip. So we saw about 60 students absent that Thursday and about 125 students absent that Friday, and then a pretty similar pattern of 60 to 80 students on the Tuesday returning. So I think my ask of the community is really to try to plan your vacations as much as you can around the school calendar, and bring your students to school. And it helps them academically, it helps them socially, emotionally, and it helps us be able to attract and retain high quality talent at our schools. So I think we were all a little bit concerned to see how large the dip is leading up to a 3-day weekend.
It
was just good data to have for us.
Say that to people. Holy smokes, we missed a lot of students these past 2 days. Wow, we missed.
Yeah.
And part of your communication's whew.
I think when I send my communication, what I will try to do is talk about the $75 a day, talk about the average, talk about what that means when you extrapolate it over 180 days, talk about these outlier days. Just that Friday before Labor Day cost us $9,375.
Say that. I mean,
it's $10,000 that we could have used for programming, for teacher compensation, for any number of things. So it's really important.
Can we get that out here sooner? Because I'm looking at the calendar. October 3rd is a Thursday, which we don't have any school. It's just a local holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we don't have school on Thursday, let's take off Wednesday night and go somewhere. We're only missing a Friday. Oh wait, that's going to be $10,000 of lost dollars. So it would be nice to get something out sooner to highlight that massive delta from Labor Day.
Just so you know, our principals have been planning events on that Friday to make kids want to be at school.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which was one of the other questions that I had was just kind of practices and structures and things on campuses that are either inadvertently incentivizing behaviors we don't want, or that could be overtly incentivizing behaviors that we do want, like having things happening on those, specifically on those days that might experience a higher than desired
absenteeism.
Lack of students showing up.
When I like the idea of messaging, what chronic absenteeism is, 2 days a month for the whole school year, you're chronically absent.
That's right.
And if you do that from TK through 8th, that's 10 years, and that 10 years of schooling, but it means you've missed a full year in a classroom. That's 180 days.
It's a lot of lost
By the
learning.
time you get to 8th grade, if that's what you're missing.
Yeah.
So
So
like to make
it's
sure
a
people
whole
know that.
year. It's a whole year
Of
of
education.
school. In your 8 years of school, you're basically
from TK
exempting precluding your child from going to school for a year.
But we also want to acknowledge that these kids get sick.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah,
when you
for
send them to
sure.
school, and they have a cascade event of sickness in the classroom, that hurts us more than saying, give them some NyQuil, knock out the fever,
Yeah,
and send
don't do
them to
that.
school.
Sickness doesn't show up like that. Sickness does not everybody show up sick on
I
Friday.
agree.
So
That is Tom.
I think,
Yeah.
I think you're right, and I think sickness would just show up as an across the board.
And I think that's
thing.
where the average of about 40 students absent is probably normal.
Yeah.
I just did the math. That's about a 97% attendance rate. If we did 97% as the average for the year, would be shouting from the mountaintops about how proud we are of the increased attendance across the district.
Is that
That'd be better than
worthwhile? And
Yeah.
this is great data. Is that worthwhile to say, hey, in fact, last year, we can assume a lot of this was sickness, that's fine. But on these massive days that we missed, that cost the district $400,000, whatever it is, for just those big days before Labor Day, kind of those examples.
Yeah.
That might be good to say, hey, $10,000 this Friday. Here's what that looked like last year.
Yeah.
And you take out the 40 a day that you just assumed to be missing for sickness.
And I think that's when I send out my message, and I'll send out a few of them this year. I want to strike the balance between like the urgency to get your student here. It's really about academic achievement and social emotional learning. Like that's really what this is about. We just happen to be in a really unique revenue situation where it's also about the funding. That's kind of an ancillary thing. I think we just feel a little bit more pressure because of the revenue stream that we're in to talk about the money. And I don't want to over-index on the money because really it's about the learning and the social development.
Yeah, because it's a burden on a teacher to have to catch somebody up if they've been out of class.
Yep.
I mean, and that's hard on the teacher, it's hard on the students, it's hard on the classmates too, because they have a community in the classrooms. So
that's right.
It's important that the kids are there if they're healthy.
Great. So that's the update. I'll kind of bring numbers like this to you probably once a month. And if you have other input or feedback or other types of data you want to see from us, just let us know.
Thank you. That one slide was really, with the big red arrow, was super helpful. And even being able to look over a whole year's period and we'll look at the trend lines, go whoop, whoop, in a very consistent Friday pattern will like even make that. Again, so it's not just a general when your kid's sick, because that's not going to show up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the message we're sending is don't send your kids to school sick.
No, but thank you.
And I want to thank Pam Cooney for her work running these numbers. She's done a little bit extra for me this year because I've been asking more. And then Teresa was the person who was able to create that beautiful graph for us. So thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you. Do we have public comment for this one? Any public comment? No public comment? Okay. Sorry, just wanted to make sure. All right, with that, I will move on. Our next item is the recommended approval of Resolution 02-2425 to adopt the GAN limit. This is Chris Carson. What? Why is my thing? Okay, sorry.
It's a tentative agreement.
Yes, recommended approval of 2023-24 tentative agreement and memorandum of understanding between the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees and the California School Employees Association, Golden Pine, Chapter 719. Sorry, this thing is goofy today.
So this is actually both Tyler and I as well. And this is the salary settlement agreement with the classified employees in the district for the 23-24 school year. We did settle with the teachers, RVTA, and with management and confidential staff already. And with this particular settlement, it's the same basic percentages with the exception of the $500 bonus, because the $500 bonus with the salaries that the classified staff end up being with a slightly higher dollar or percentage amount. So I just want to point that out. But when you put this into the within the multi-year projections, it's what we had already anticipated and expected. And we did have to do what's called an AB 1200, which AB 1200 is set in place because there were districts that gave away dollars and salary settlement above what they could afford. And so AB 1200 requires the district to then include notification to the County Office of Education, give them 10 days period prior to the board taking action on the item to actually look at the projections and with the dollars rolled in to ensure that we can afford this. And we did submit that to the County Office of Education, and we've also rolled these dollars into our unaudited actual report. So you'll see that the budget dollars also go up for the 24-25 school year. Okay. So, and with this, the approval would pass the same raise on to the CSEA staff.
Okay. Do you have any questions for Chris?
No questions on mine.
Any public comment? No public comment. Okay. Any discussion on this or questions, anything like that to discuss among our board members here?
I just want to thank our CSEA members for their partnership here. We really value the work that they do. I was talking to the admins across the district this morning or this afternoon, and you know, it's the classified folks that keep the trains running on time, and when the trains are running on time, it's easy to do the teaching and learning, so we're happy to be able to bring this to the board for approval.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that it's a whole team of people. Even though it's two different units, it's everybody's working together. So, and this looks familiar from what we had seen before, so there's nothing
There's no
there's nothing in it that's a
surprises.
surprise or
Yeah.
new or anything like that from what we've discussed in the past. So I don't have any other questions. And unless anyone else does, I'd make a motion. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the recommended, or to pass the recommended approval of the tentative agreement or memorandum of understanding between Ross Valley School Board District of Trustees and California School Employees Association, Golden High, Chapter 719.
I will second.
All right, I have a first and a second, Shelley.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. And thank you for working to get that agreed then.
Thank you.
All right, okay. We're on number 4, F4. Making sure my screen isn't jumping around. All right, so our next item is F4, recommended approval of resolution 022425 to adopt the CAN limit.
And this is me again. So this is one of those perfunctory type of forms that we do every year. And what it does is it takes in our unaudited actuals and our 24-25 budget, and it runs the figures through these formulas that happened and were put together in 1979 by Paul Gann and was approved at the legislature. And what it does is the intent is to help constrain government so that we don't grow too big too fast. And so this is a convoluted formula that then just ensures that our numbers are in line with where they should be.
This is statutory. We have to do this every year.
We
right?
have to do this every
Well,
year.
then,
It's also one of the things that the legislator's looking at, maybe us not having to do because it's like a redundant thing that's
It's
just
so
making
redundant.
paperwork. Like we can't ever grow as fast as this formula calculates.
Exactly. By
Like
the time it catches up with us, we're like right
We'll
back.
get to that. We were just at the GLAC meeting today, so
Okay.
in our staff,
Okay.
in our board report outs, we can continue this conversation.
Interesting.
It's
Do
just
you have any
like-
questions for Chris? Any
No.
questions? None? All right, do any public comment? No public comment. All
I'm
right.
going to make a motion to approve the resolution 022425 to adopt the GAN limit.
I will second that. So Chris?
Aye.
Rachel, aye. Shelley?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Our next item is F5, recommended approval of 2023-24 unadded actuals financial report. Go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to change places. It's hard for me to give the presentation and block the screen for the board. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss the unaudited actuals this evening. And so this is just our agenda, what we'll be talking about. What I first wanted to talk about, I go through and I do a budget every 3 months. And so what does that look like in terms of timelines? So we have our adopted budget, which happens in June. We have our first interim budget that ends up being done in December 15th. We have our second interim budget that is March 15th. And then we close out our year with the estimated actuals, which is a final budget that's part of that adopted budget. And then we actually close our books on September 15th. As you look at it, you'll see there's 5 different things, but it's really 4 different reports. So they kind of merge together. So I just wanted to remind everybody. So where we're at right now is just closing our books for the 23-24 year. And in terms of our general fund, this is where we have closed our books in 21-22, 22-23, and where we're closing in 23-24. This is only the general fund. And what I want to point out is that in 23-24, we did show a net change in our fund balance of $653,000 deficit. And so when you look at that, that's the first deficit we've had during those last 3 years. And we are projecting for 24-25, $1.6 million deficit. Keep in mind that this is restricted and unrestricted.
Yeah. I guess as I look at the numbers overall for 23-24, even with the 653 deficit, the beginning fund balance is still higher. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what that impact is.
You have the 10,143,000, which is your ending balance from 22-23. So what it does is it just carries
it
over.
over.
And then you end up dropping 653,000 and get to the $9.5 million.
I was reading it incorrectly. Okay.
Yeah, so it just kind of goes.
I see. Yeah.
It's the step down.
Okay.
And one of the things that's also important to note as you start to look at 24-25 is if you look at your LCFF revenues, just between 23-24 where we closed the books and 24-25, it's a very small increase in our revenues. And I just want to point that out because that will impact us as we move forward. Even though we're flipping into community funded status this year, your LCFF revenues are driven by attendance and property taxes, and it's a very small increase this year.
Can you remind me again what happened between 21-22 and 22-23 to jump to about $1 million?
Yeah, the $2 million.
Yeah.
So the reasons that, again, this is both restricted and unrestricted. So some of the differences are you've got large programs, large projects that came in. So for example, in 22-23, we had the art, music, instructional materials block grant that came in. So that was a really large dollar amount and fell to the bottom in terms of a fund balance. So those are the types of things that happen. It's not unusual, but really when we focus on our fund balances, what we really focus in on, not the restricted side, but the unrestricted. So when we talk about what is your reserve percentage, the reserve percentage is really based upon your unrestricted fund balance. And so for our district, in 23-24, it's $7.1 million. So we actually lost $185,000. You'll see that between 22-23, where we went from $7,339,000 down to $7,153,000. So that is a deficit of $185,000 in 23-24. What that did is it took our ending fund balance down from 25.7 down to 23.1 million. And so I want to point out that at our estimated actuals in June, we were showing within the budget in the general fund that we were going to spend down even more. But when we talked about it and when we wrote it up, I went through, because it's not unusual and it happens in every single district where you have a budget and you don't spend every dollar. And so for us, we didn't spend approximately $900,000, but I was estimating at estimated actuals in June that instead of being 23.1%, we would be at 22.9%. So we're right in line with what I was estimating at that time. So there's no big surprise, positive or negative. It's right in line. The other thing that you'll see is they're starting the downward trend with our fund balance. The reason I went back to 21-22 is because we were up to in the 26.6% area, and you see that we're starting to spend down those dollars. So a lot of that is anticipated, or most of it is anticipated. It's what has happened with salary settlements, et cetera, over the years. So just keep in mind 23.1%. Other funds, I'd like to provide this information just because when we talk about the general fund, that's only one of the total funds that we keep track of, but we're actually doing the books for all of these different other funds as well. And what are they? We have our cafeteria fund, which provides our food services. We have our deferred maintenance fund. That's a fund that is really going to become defunct in a few years. It's no longer being funded. It used to be funded based upon a deferred maintenance match, which districts don't get credit for anymore, so nobody is putting dollars there any longer. And that can be used to do capital facilities type projects if you need to do repairs and maintenance. Fund 25 is your capital facilities fund, which is anytime somebody pulls a permit to build in their district, within the district. If you build 500 square feet or more, you have to pay a fee to the district for growth. And that's what the capital facilities fund is. Fund 35, even though it says county school facilities fund, it's a funny term, but what it really is it's a modernization fund, I'm sorry. So anytime we do any type of modernization, those dollars would go through that, where we receive dollars directly from the state. We just have a small amount that's carried over.
It's ridiculous. Like,
It's just
why?
carryover.
Yeah.
That's why it's small, because it's carryover from old projects. So we don't have any new dollars coming in.
Yeah.
So we have to account
You have
for
to
them
hold
separately.
it, you have to keep a bucket
Yeah.
there in case, okay.
Fund 40, and I do want to talk about this one. This is a special reserve for capital facilities. Why is this one important? Because the revenues that came in, the single largest revenue that we received was Deer Park. So the Deer Park proceeds. And so I want to point out that this is where we're keeping those dollars. And the only expenses that we charged against it were the attorney fees for the Deer Park. So that's what the dollar amount is there. And so they are being kept separately aside, and they're not in the general fund. So I want to point that out. And then Fund 51, a bond interest and redemption fund. This is just the fund that it's a flow-through fund that the county of Marin keeps for us, and they use it to collect the property taxes for the bonds that are on the books, and they're then paying with those tax dollars the bonds funds out, and so they pay and receive those funds separately, and we don't actually get them, but we have to account for them. So that's what that is. So in a nutshell, this is really our entire general fund, or our entire district budget.
And they're apples for apples, like just to make sure that fund has to go to the fund of which it's intended to do.
Correct, which is why it's in a separate fund altogether. That way, when talking about the general fund is used to pay for salaries for teachers and classified staff and running the school district as a whole. Everything else is either an enterprise fund or some other type of required fund.
It's required, you can't touch it. Hence,
Correct.
back to this one,
Yes.
why you separate them out, because you cannot look at that money and say, oh, look, you got a bunch of money up there.
Yes.
Because it's allocated, it's designated for specific
By
things that you
statute.
can't by
By
statute.
Yes,
I'm
correct.
guessing if it wasn't spent the correct way, it would show up as an audit finding.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's, I think it's extremely useful to keep them separated, because when people are looking at our reserves, so those percentages are percentages off of just the unrestricted.
Yes, for the general fund.
Right.
And so I just want to end with that again. And so in a nutshell, we're closing the books for 23-24 at 23.1%.
Okay,
Do we have any more questions for Chris?
thank you.
No. Okay. Do we have any public comment? No public comment. All right. With
Can
that,
I ask a stupid question?
no stupid questions. Go ahead.
If these are unaudited, when will they be audited?
Our actual auditor, it was here today, will be here tomorrow, and we will have our audit report usually by the end of January.
So do we approve the unaudited and audited version?
You also accept the audit report.
Accept it, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And then the other thing is, just as a caveat, the audit report is due to the state by December, I want to say 15th, but it might be another date in December. It's in December. And then we have to accept it and get it to the county by the end of January.
Okay,
I just want to thank Chris and his team. Closing the books is maybe one of the most monumental tasks that a school district goes through, and it's a ton of work. I know Lindsay, Pam, Jenny all participate in some way, and I know you put in a ton of hours on this, and I just want to thank all of you for what you do to make sure we're doing this accurately.
Yes.
thank you.
And knowing as a board, this is one of our main,
So-
core responsibilities as a board is hiring superintendent, overseeing the budgeting, and then overseeing policies. So this is a third of what we're supposed to be really focused on. So you have definitely made it easy, helpful, a sense of we understand what's going on and trust that you've
Yes.
gone through all of the pieces. So thank you.
actually you provide us with the pieces you've gone through that we can also look at them as well. And I appreciate the full transparency that you provide us, the clarity of which you explain things, and the willingness to really answer any questions, dumb or not. You know, I work in finance, and I'm a former Ernst & Young auditor, and the work that you do alone is often the work of 5 to 6 people in some organizations. And I just want to recognize that and show gratitude. Really appreciate all the work you do, Chris.
Thank you.
So this is a voting thing.
This is a voting thing, so if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the 2023-24 unaudited actuals financial report.
I'll second it.
All right, I have a first and a second.
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Rachel? Aye. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, next item is curriculum and instruction update.
Before Julia gets started, I just want to say thanks to Julia and Melina for the work that they've been doing. To have the two of them running all of curriculum and instruction is another big task. We got a lot of folks on our team that wear multiple hats and do lots of extra work. This is really, in my opinion, and I'm a former teaching and learning kind of person, is what the heartbeat of the school is, right? Like the interaction between the teacher, the student, and the content is the instructional core. And what you're going to hear Julia talk about really is what's pushing the district forward. And I want to thank her for running multiple pilots at once and getting lots of teacher input on things. And thank our teachers that are piloting. It's an extra lift to pilot a new curriculum and give feedback to us about what we should and shouldn't adopt. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Definitely a team effort. All right, so this evening, I'm really happy to talk you through some of the pilots. We actually have 4 pilots going on, and just wanted to start with just a little dip into our board policy and administrative regulations around selection and evaluation of instructional materials. This is the part that's your job, as well as my job. But really when we're looking for instructional materials, we're looking for a teaching tool that's going to help to deliver content to students in a way that's engaging and really meets the needs of every kid. And so we look at programs that are recommended by the state. We look for programs that are well aligned with Common Core standards, with state frameworks, academic frameworks, and with current research. And it is written into our policy that our teachers will be involved in a substantial manner. And I really can't emphasize that enough. When we're selecting curriculum, we need those who are going to be utilizing that curriculum. You know, the practitioners are the ones whose voice is most important. So it's a great process. And I wanted to give you, a little bit of a sense of what that looks like for one of our bigger pilots right now. So our elementary kindergarten through 5th grade is looking, as I've talked about, at a new English language arts program. But this is something that has been, I would say that we're really in the 3rd year of working on this. It began in spring of 2023 when we engaged in a series of conversations about literacy instruction and all of this research. You've heard that term, science of reading, and it's also very much related to structured literacy. And what people were finding out about how kids learn to read and the ways in which our current program was in alignment with that research, and then finding some ways in which maybe we weren't in the alignment that we really need for our kids. And so from that, in that spring of 2023, we developed a core document on our core beliefs about literacy instruction. And it took, we had a group of I don't know, it was Delight, our Delight teachers, which is about 12 teachers, and then we invited some other teacher experts. We have teachers within the district who have additional credentials as reading specialists, and we invited them and our principals to just really engage and say, what do we know ourselves about how kids learn to read and write, and what have we learned from all of this kind of research that we've been doing. And the decision of that group was that the most important action for the following year, which was last school year, the 23-24 school year, was to really deeply engage with understanding the research and understanding reading instruction. And that's when we contracted with Glean Education and brought in Jessica Hammond, who's a dyslexia expert as well, to work with our teachers. And that was really our professional development over the course of last year. And then in spring of last year, we put together this pilot team and brought a group of 17 teachers together. And they, I think, had 3 release days. And over the course of those release days, they went through 7 or 8 different instructional programs. And on the final release day, I think 4 programs had risen to the top, and there was a presentation from each of those programs as well. And then they took another dive, and they landed with 2 programs that they were interested in, one being Benchmark Advance and the other being Collaborative Literacy. And so now we have just launched Benchmark Advance. Teachers have started working with the materials, and they actually have a training this week on Friday. And that's where we are. I don't know if Benchmark Advance is going to be our district program. We have a lot of work to do before we could make that determination. I definitely think we'll be piloting at least 2 programs. I also know that in talking with people who have my job across the district, there's a lot of grappling around this. What is the new ELA program? We're all making these shifts. Structured literacy, science of reading is really important. So lots of cross conversation and people searching for something that fits. So just a little bit about Benchmark Advance. It is a structured literacy program. Oh, I do that. Yeah, thank you. With, It is a structured literacy program with strong alignment with science of reading. It's got a really strong phonics core. It's a knowledge-based program, which is another part of the research that's out there, is this recognition that kids need exposure to a lot of content knowledge. That's how they develop those comprehension strategies and academic vocabulary and all of those different tools that make them good, strong readers and good, strong writers. There is an organization called Ed Reports that's kind of the organization that takes a look at curriculum. And when it's in all green, that means it's a recommended program. So they have a very extensive evaluation process. And it is one of the programs on Ed Reports that is recommended by them. It has that, the foundations in terms of explicit systematic instruction, which is the big recommendation around science of reading research. And I do want to say that our current program is the Units of Writing from Lucy Calkins, but we have always, alongside that program, used Foundations, which is the phonics program that almost every district in the country is turning to right now for that same support. And we've used that for over 10 years. And so Ross Valley has not been a district that has been, kind of on one side of that pendulum. We've always had that recognition of the importance of foundational support for students. All right, and that's just the image there shows you a little bit about what a page might look like and how they engage student thinking. I actually picked up the book Horrible Bear. It's pretty cute, pretty funny. It takes them through, and there are just all these different components in terms of what kids learn.
Are the pilots that you're looking at replacing either of the 2 things that we're already using, or as a third option, or what's?
It would be a replacement. So when we are all done and the pilot group makes a recommendation and we've gone through our process, we will be bringing to the board the program that we recommend. And once that happens, if the board approves the program, and we move forward with purchasing, then there will be a whole rollout where every kindergarten through 5th grade teacher in the district will receive training and coaching around how to use that program.
Hey Julia, how are you mentioned the dyslexia expert Hammond that you brought in. How are you synthesizing her expertise into this platform, if anything?
Well, I think, like, I can even speak for myself. I learned a lot from Jessica just about what the research is, and there's so much to know and understand about how students learn to read, and even just understanding the phonics progression and all of the sounds that go with the letters and the blends and the segmenting and how you put things together. She really helped with a lot of that, and we had definitely in this room of teachers where some of them have been teaching, like this evening, for 20 years of, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and they were learning some new things about how to teach in a structured language approach. And then we have that lens. Last year when the pilot team was looking at programs, we developed a lens, and that lens itself had all of these different components in it, so that when we were looking at the different programs, we were making sure that those were there.
Can I add something? I think 2 things with dyslexia, and I'm not an expert. Julie is way more expert than I am here. But one is about early identification and assessment. We have an early screener that's a really great support, and the iReady program that we have should help us identify kids that are struggling reading with potential dyslexia issues. And then the whole point of the structured literacy is kind of more explicit, direct instruction. And that can really help with students that are struggling with dyslexia. So I think Lucy Calkins stuff is more about the art of learning how to read and the wonder and the excitement and engagement, where this is a little bit more structured. So that early identification with the assessment tools that we have, along with the more structured approach, should help. Is that about accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the state is requiring a reading screener beginning, I think, next year, but we're in our 2nd year of having full implementation.
Yeah.
So we administer those screeners. Those are administered by our intervention teachers, and they've got all the data, and they are the ones who, when there is a kid who, maybe is at risk for dyslexia or any other difficulty with reading, they're the ones that would be working with that child. So they've got that data right away. They're sharing that data with teachers, and then the teachers have this other diagnostic data. So that's a big part of this as well. And then, working from 2 places here.
Do you want me to drive for you?
Yeah, I think so, because I keep forgetting to drive. And just some logistics around it. So we are piloting 4 units. They're, as I said, getting a full day of training. They've got on-site coaching. We're going to have a couple of the folk from the trainers from Benchmark coming and doing demo lessons for teachers so they can see it in action from those who know the program really well. There's monthly virtual check-ins. I did want to mention Benchmark is the program that the Palo Alto Unified School District adopted, and they have a Reading First initiative, of which this program is a part, and they are kind of an exemplar in the state because they've shown such gains in their CASP data and all of their assessment data, and particularly for student groups who typically don't show those gains. So a lot of high-performing districts are using Benchmark. It's a shift for our teachers for sure. It's very different from the way that they have been teaching. And I'm looking forward to Friday and hearing more about how that's going and whether it feels like a fit. All right. And so another pilot that we have going on right now is in our middle school with our math program. And our teachers have been using for quite some time a program called CPM, which is actually a terrific program. But they wanted to start bringing in kind of just another way of looking at things, something that is problem-based and inquiry-based, and scaffolds really well. And last year, they were using a program called Desmos Math as a supplement. And this year, the Desmos Math program is a full program. And so they are doing a year-long pilot of this program. It's a terrific program. Some of the folks who developed the program, well, the Desmos Math program is based on a program called Illustrative Math, which was written by one of the authors of the Common Core Math Standards. And so it's a very rich program. And then Desmos itself is kind of this think tank with some, like, what I consider rock stars in this world. People like Fawn Nguyen and Dan Meyer, who are just big thinkers around mathematics instruction. So it's really exciting to have these folk who just really think deeply about how students learn math and how to get kids excited. And I included just this one image that I saw in I think this was a 6th grade problem, just looking at the perimeter of this figure here. And to me, that's an exciting problem because right away you're thinking about how to solve that. It's funny looking, like, that's not a square, that's not a rectangle, that's not even a circle. How am I gonna go about solving that? Like, it's got parts of circles, but parts are missing. It's kind of exciting to do. And teachers have the option of having kids move through a series of screens where they are manipulating images and things as they're working, or to do the same work in kind of a paper pencil format. So teachers are excited. It's not a program that's entirely new to them. That's one of the reasons that they wanted to move forward with this program. And it seems to be going really well. Next slide. And again, we're piloting for a full year. They've already had training. They have ongoing coaching. I would say by early spring, we should have a decision. Our entire math department at White Hill is piloting. And here's another fun problem.
I think I answered this question correctly. Can I ask my other board trustees if they can answer number 4 correctly? Because I have, I believe I have the answer.
You can put us through this.
We should be able to do 6th to 8th grade math.
So which one are you saying is, you're
Well, I'm
saying?
not, I have my, I can
You're
whisper
saying
it.
we should choose the correct one?
Yes. No, well, there's, select all of the hangers that must also be balanced. If hanger A is balanced.
Well, if hanger A is balanced, that means that 2 zeros and 2 squares have to equate to the 5 squares on the right.
Okay, why don't you just tell everybody the answer?
So C and also G would be my guesses.
I thought I was gonna have to do like division and stuff. Like
Am I right?
I was thinking for hanger, they said hanger A is balanced. So if you take 2 of the squares off of the right side, you need what is it? 2 and 2 on
maybe
one,
the
and you need.
circles are heavier than the squares.
They are.
Oh, they are.
To what
They
ratio?
So
are.
what ratio?
Oh, so it might be more than G and.
I believe it's more than
G
just
and-
2.
Because
I do
you've
too.
got a one.
So you've
each
got F is
circle
also.
is 1.5.
F also is that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say perhaps D. So C, D, G, and F?
Hold on, D, 3,
No.
yeah, D would work. Let's see.
So in class, we might say, do you agree? Do you disagree?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Does anyone?
That's good.
What other
Anyone-
ways could you figure that out? Are
Then
there
I
any
have
other
2 other
answers?
10 and say, you're all
Yeah.
stupid.
And then we would look to our social emotional learning.
I get a reflection.
Chris, would you like to talk a little bit about what makes you so frustrated right now?
It's 8:35.
I think Daniel has shown what an engaging problem this
Yeah,
is.
that's why it's
And
great. I
then
think both of them are really good
if
examples.
you go a little deeply into the mathematics here, like if you look at hanger A and you look at hanger G, it's just been flipped
It's been
around.
flipped around,
But that's
right.
one of the properties of mathematics, right? That if A equals B and B equals A, or A plus B is equal to B plus A. And so they're actually building those understanding of mathematical properties, but this is really fun. And in the online versions that they use, they then get to build kind of their own balance mobiles and test each other and create problems for each other. And it's a lot of fun.
That's cool.
It's really cool.
And this is really
about it.
an example of how math is different than it was when we all went to school.
This is new math now.
Right? Like doing the single answer. This is like a collaborative project. There's multiple right answers. There's critical thinking. And I think that's one of the things exciting and engaging about math and the way we teach it today as compared to the 80s and 70s.
It's collaborative because back in the day, remember those days?
There's a book out right now that is like taking the math teaching world by storm. But one of the recommendations of the book is to use vertical whiteboards, which means get your teachers up and out of their chairs and working on a board with each other. And they've done all these studies looking at engagement of students and how much that engagement increases and how much the discourse between students increases simply because everyone's standing at the board together. And our White Hill teachers have been reading this book and they put those vertical whiteboards going with these kinds of problems.
That's great.
It's good stuff. Makes my heart sing.
Is this curriculum conversation in elementary and middle schools, is there a parallel conversation going on in the high schools? Because I'm thinking of the matriculation between and the articulation between 8th grade and then into 9th grade, knowing how important that 8th grade to 9th grade transition is. And I'm thinking
That's
of
a really good question.
that math problem. You could have students in 8th grade who like get it, they're engaged, and then they go into 9th grade and they're in algebra, and the algebra teacher's talking about the A's and B's and transitive properties and blah, blah, blahs. And you can have the same kid who totally whizzed on this, all of a sudden think that they're dumb and I don't know what this is all about because there's nobody saying, remember that hanger thing that you did where you could flip it? This is exactly the same thing with the fancy word on top of it, but I don't know whether there's any kind of
My
conversation.
short answer is definitely yes. Right now, if you teach algebra in the TAM district, I don't know if it's every algebra teacher, but I think it is, you're involved in something called their algebra project. And that group is reading Building Thinking Classrooms, which is the same book that White Hill is reading. So there's some really good alignment there. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I will say I'm quite old, but I used algebra in my job for the first time last year.
Okay.
So
see, it mattered.
Comes back. It takes a long time, but it does come back.
Wait till you get further along with the 6th grader. We'll be doing algebra soon.
All right, and another program that we are, we haven't started this pilot yet. We have a mid or late September training for it. It's called the Creative Curriculum. It's a program that's been around for a while, but it's been retooled in alignment with the brand new California preschool standards. And it's a play-based program. It seems super cool. They're piloting one unit, and the unit is about percussion instruments. So, that's brave for a TK class of 24 students to be studying percussion instruments.
For a TK class of 24 students.
But just on day one, I love just looking at, if you look at that long column there, it shows kind of what a day looks like of the question of the day and the vocabulary, focused project learning, choice time, read aloud, focused language and literacy, focused mathematics, and outdoor play. So it's got all of these different components. It's academic, but it's academic in a way that students are learning through very intentional play. And it just seems terrific. So I'm very excited to see this one launch. It means I get to spend more time in TK classes, which is one of my favorite things to do. And kudos again to our amazing pilot teachers, who are all of our TK teachers are a part of this pilot. And again, and Tyler said this at the beginning, and thank you, Tyler, for that acknowledgement of all the work that it takes for teachers to pilot. It means, they're taking a lot. It's difficult to learn a program and really execute it with fidelity in a way that is smooth and works for kids. And they're doing all that good work. And we are also piloting a brand new Spanish program called Que Chevere, which means.
It's just so cool.
Is that what it means?
That's what it means.
Okay, so cool.
Is this for middle school or
So this is for middle school for 7th and 8th grade.
Yes, it says so.
This program comes from Carnegie Learning, and it's also one of the state of California has 3 recommended programs. And so our 2 Spanish teachers looked at all 3 programs, and this was their favorite. And it was also my favorite without being in the room with them. So I was really pleased to see that we landed in the same place. Super engaging, really connects well with kids, has very strong cultural competency, which is really important, particularly when you're learning about people who come from different places. So watching for any, potential stereotypes or the kinds of things that used to show up in Spanish textbooks. But you can see, they have comics, they've got hilarious videos of basically teens talking to each other. And there was one where a girl whose first language is English is talking to a couple of kids in Mexico, asking where the bathroom is, but she's calling it the banjo, and they're cracking up over it, and then she figures it out, and it's fun, and it's the kind of thing that's going to make kids laugh, but also remember, oh, baño, got it.
If it's a pilot, do all of the 7th and 8th graders who are doing Spanish get a chance to do this? It's not just
for this pilot. This is a full year pilot, full program. So we're purchasing a class set of print textbooks that'll stay in the classroom, and then every student will have an e-license that they can use in class or out of class. So it will be everyone.
Great.
And there's one other feature that is really neat. They have a little AI piece where kids can talk to it, and it talks back to them and helps them with their Spanish, which they're finding. Well, the way they sold it was that kids that are a little bit more shy about speaking have this opportunity to speak, and anyways, sounded kind of neat to me. And Lara Martinez and Mary Faith Sarasoli are 2 teachers who are piloting that program. All right. I like this quote. We can't stop thinking, reflecting, and questioning and challenging our own best teaching and the resources we use. And we cannot forget that we teach kids. We don't teach curriculum. And I remember the first time I heard someone say that, it was actually a big aha as a math teacher of, I don't teach math. I teach kids. I teach them math. But really what I'm teaching is kids.
That's what Mr. O says.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so tentative adoption schedule, I'm hoping to kind of stagger these to keep my work life sane. And again, these are pilots. And so we're going with the presumption that they go well, but if teachers are not on board, then we will not be bringing that program to you. We'll keep looking. We're not going to adopt a program that isn't the right program for our students.
When will you collect feedback? Halfway through the year or
Well, depending on typically at the end of a program, so we have a whole lens developed for each of them, and so it's an evaluation lens, kind of like a survey that all of the teachers will use, and then we look at that data together, we have conversations, and then we make a decision. So it depends on the pilot, but for like the Spanish one, I would say by the middle of the year, we should know whether or not it's the right program for us and can make a decision and move forward.
Will you rely on the teachers to indicate positive outcomes from the pilot in relation to what was used previously? Like yeah, they actually are learning Spanish at a higher, rate or
Yes, in some subjects like Spanish, we don't have kind of standardized assessments that are going to make that easy. And we also have one teacher where it's her first year and one teacher where it's her second year with us. So it'll be an interesting process that might need a little bit more support from the district end than, say, the ELA program where teachers have been using a program for a long period of time.
So you'll measure against not successful output, but what will be
Well,
the
it's how are students doing in terms of learning the material, and then also feedback from students. You want students to like the program, to be excited about what they're learning. You know, if you get that every time you pull something out, it's a good indicator that maybe it's the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Especially with middle school, you're going to use it for a couple lessons, and the kids will tell you exactly whether they like it or not.
My question on this is, since we don't have benchmarks for the Spanish language, is it possible for us to maybe communicate with Archie Williams, where these kids might be matriculating into, with their program, so we're preparing them adequately? So it's like, these are what they need expecting, like what we expect them to have coming in at Archie for a second year. Because I don't want to send kids, oh yeah, I've had 2 years of Spanish, and then them be completely incapable of like adapting for fast.
So at that point, I'm looking at our audience member here, our co-principal of White Hill.
I just don't want to be sending kids thinking that they've got 2 years of solid Spanish and they're not ready. Because that's a burden on Archie, and it's also hard on a child to think, I know this, and then
the feedback we've gotten, we've never gotten feedback that's anything other than our kids are ready to, because it's 2 years of middle school. World language equates to 1 year in high school, so typically our kids are ready. But that would be a good articulation conversation for our two sites to have.
Yeah, would they enter at Archie with Spanish 2 instead of Spanish 1?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know some children in middle school now, that's their goal, is they want to skip an extra year of taking it in high school by doing it 2 years at our school. So I want to make sure that they're actually getting what they need out of it.
Exactly.
So,
if there were unexpected things going sideways in this process, where have you seen that happen?
It typically, what is difficult is if you don't have consensus with your teachers. So going back with CPM, our 7th and 8th grade teachers, when we adopted that program maybe 10 years ago, really wanted the program, and 6th grade didn't feel that it was as strong of a fit, but we did want a 3-year program, and so I at that time ended up doing a lot of research and contacted some other people who were kind of experts in the field, and came to the determination that it was the best program at the time.
I think when the district makes decisions without significant teacher input, that's one way you see these things go sideways. What Julie is doing with teachers and the work that teachers are doing should help solve that problem. The other thing is there's no program that's going to meet all your criteria, so you're going to have to do some supplement regardless of the program you choose. And if everyone understands that and can be comfortable with, hey, this is the framework we're going to hang 80% of our teaching on, and then we're going to supplement with other, novels or other supplemental curriculum, then I think you can build out a really comprehensive program from there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
How does the equity work that's happening in the classrooms fit in with these new curriculums? And I'm thinking especially with like science reading and stuff like that, in terms of what the students are reading and what the discussions are, and how that is or isn't fitting in with some of this new piloting stuff.
It's a part of our lens always, and in fact with our English language arts pilot, the way that we developed our lens to determine what we wanted to pilot was we broke into groups and asked each group to name 5 things that they had to have in a program and 1 thing that was a deal breaker. And every single group, their deal breaker was that if it was not culturally competent. Right. And actually one of the programs that's a very popular program, they said no deal because they did not feel that the portrayal of all of the different races and ethnicities was in alignment with all of the work that we've been doing. So that lens is very strong in this district. Right. And it's been that was a neat moment actually for me to see it all coming. I didn't need to say a word.
That's great. So it was a pre-screening even before you got to the pilots, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And then the academic rigor and engagement is another component of that equity lens, making sure that all of our students are achieving at a high level and getting access to the curriculum, and they're seeing themselves in the curriculum. It's not just the symbolism of seeing yourself in the curriculum in an authentic way, but it's actually that you can achieve. And I think, they're looking at both of those things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful to
Yeah,
have
that was
this
cool.
heads up down the road rather than like, here, approve this new curriculum that you've seen for the first time. So appreciate the sequencing of this with us very much. Thank you.
And just one final thing, any program that we're going to bring to the board, we will have on display here at the district office, and that'll go out to parents so that parents and guardians can come in and take a look at the program as well.
Do we need to vote on
No, it's
this?
just discussion.
Not tonight,
vote.
when it
There's
comes.
When it comes, okay.
no public here for comment, so if you have any other questions, if not, I will continue on with our agenda. Our next item is consent actions. We can approve these all in one motion unless anyone would like to pull anything out or discuss anything, have any questions.
I read them, I didn't have any
I didn't have any
questions. I
I didn't either. If not, I will entertain a motion.
was second.
I'm entertaining it. So you did
Really
first.
entertaining.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, I will recommend approval of this, of the personnel actions,
Consent action.
consent actions.
I'll second it.
All right, so I have a first and a second. Chris,
Aye.
Daniel,
Aye.
Shelley,
Aye.
Rachel, aye. All right, we have approved consent actions. And on to board business. We have committee updates and reports from and announcements by trustees. Anyone have some stuff they would like to report?
Shelley asked a really good question today on JLAC.
Thank you.
Why do we have to keep doing the same stuff every month, every year? Like, is there a way to track all the things that just get approved anyway? Like, that's a really good question.
It was in the context, so we were both on the JLAC meeting this morning. It was in the context of the legislative lobbyist group that all of the school boards work with. And they said that there was they're like, it's kind of strange to be excited about the fact that we're compiling, I think there's a new requirement that the CDE compile a list of all of the reports that school districts are required to send to the CDE and submit and evaluate them, because there had been a number of districts who were like bringing in boxes and boxes and boxes of, here are all the reports that are being required of us. So it was within that context of saying, well, are there maybe some of those things that are just perfunctory that were left over from other eras? And one of them, the one that I was specifically thinking of, not the GAN limit one, which came up tonight, which would be another one to add to the list, but the one that I was thinking of that we do, Julia, this is something that you present sometimes, is when the rule, you have to get an exemption because teachers don't see students every single day when we have a block schedule. So it was a law that was created years ago when junior high was Monday through Friday, you take 7 classes for however many minutes. And now so many people are in block schedules and that law doesn't fit with the block schedule. And it's just a structural shift in the school system that the law hasn't caught up with. And so now we have to do all of this exemptions and blah, blah, blah. And so when I brought it up to these folks, they were like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And then there was another one about PE exemptions. And I said, you could probably do a statistical analysis of certain things that are always asked exemptions that are always approved by the SBE. If they're always going to approve them, let's make those changes and not have to do it anymore. And they were like, oh, that's a good idea. So there may be some movement on that front to reduce the back-end administrative load for things that are just perfunctory that get approved. So that's the update on that. We'll see. Is there anything else in that meeting?
That covers that's a big meeting at 8:30 in the morning.
It is.
That's a lot of legalese. It's a big meeting. I went to the second half of the effectiveness and efficiency meeting today. So thank you, Teresa, for the Zoom link.
Even earlier, I might.
Yeah, 7:30, and I pushed on how do we do more shared resources? How do we have some districts that are in need of resources and help, but we're talking about e-bikes or AI. So we'll see how I can help shift that a little bit more to say, how do we reduce redundancies and improve efficiencies across the districts? The question was, well, not every district needs that. I was like, great. So maybe we'll reach out to our friends at Kentfield, Larkspur, Corte Madera, and Miller Creek, since those might be the ones in most need. So thank you for that information, and
Back to school night. Always a pleasure. Well attended at Brookside. More to do this week. Tomorrow night is White Hill, but it was nice to see you, Tyler, up and about, making yourself known. Everyone in the audience was smiling. It's good. I don't know, it just seems like the energy is just, you can touch it with your hands in the air. It's good energy. So it was a good, well-attended, great event.
I also went to back to school night for Manor, which was, I think Daniel was also there. It was lovely because I hadn't seen the new multi-purpose room that has been repainted and redone. Like, I like what they did with the tables that like fold out of the wall. It was really nicely done. So the maintenance staff did a great job on that. But it was nice because I got to meet some of the two new teachers who were there. I got to spend a lot of time in the TK room. So it was a really great back to school night there. Again, really positive energy. And Wade Thomas, I went to their back to school night. That was a fun one to go to as well. It's so nice to see all the different groups of people and just hear how differently they approach the back to school night. It's very similar overall, but every school has their own different flavor and way they do things. I also attended 3 of the ice cream socials that Tyler had with the different schools. So I was at the White Hill one, Hidden Valley, and Wade Thomas. And it was interesting. We were, particularly being as a trustee, they were really happy to see me being there. And it was really useful because some of the things that they were talking about, I'm like, some of those are really easy to solve. Some of them aren't, like the budget. But the forks, like, we could get on that. Like, there are things where it was really interesting that you could look at and, and some things didn't cost any money, but they were easy to shift. And so it was really useful to see that. But it was also interesting to see that the fork thing is across the district, and that's not the only thing that was like a commonplace thing. So it was just good for me to hear it as a trustee. And I think it was really helpful to have you going and asking those questions, because I think it's the visibility and accessibility, it's all really important. I'm also missing a Yes Board meeting tonight because they moved it from the debate night to tonight. So I can give you an update next time after I hear what happened today. And I don't have anything else to cover. So if not, we can, if no one else has anything, I'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of special meeting minutes for August 27th, 2024.
I just have a quick, we did not record this meeting, did we?
No, I don't believe that one was recorded.
Because it says audio recordings are available and it gives the site on the minutes.
Then we need to pull that off. Okay.
And I guess, the skeleton of our meeting, it's pretty comprehensive and covers, but I guess my question is, do we ever take more detailed minutes in these special meetings? Do we want to do that? I'm okay if we don't, but I just noticed that it was really just the topical side, and it was really a working meeting too, which is hard to kind of capture, but I just want to make sure we don't show that we recorded it. I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Great, we can change that.
Yes, I say that's easy to strike off, so we can approve that, having that with that amended.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good
And
idea.
I think, just for the record, a big part of that meeting was development of my evaluation goals, which we presented today. So although there might not be notes available here, if you're interested in what we discussed, that kind of came out in the evaluation goals.
Yeah, that's why I'm not really going to push that point, but I do think the recording aspect should
be removed.
Great. The only other thing, there was a couple of handouts that were like the CSBA governance standards or something like that. I mean, even attaching that, just in case anybody wanted to see what those things were that we looked at. That would be another easy thing to add in. There were materials that were there that might be interesting.
Would you like us to go back, revise the minutes, and bring it back for approval on the 25th?
I don't think that, I think there's just adding the handout and
I think
taking off the
yeah, I think
recording
just approving it
aspect.
with the amendments would be fine.
Yeah.
Because we don't usually have attachments for our minutes, it's just the minutes and then.
Yes, it wouldn't be an attachments to the minutes, so usually
Just a
uploaded.
reference.
Maybe that's not, if it's not relevant here, don't go back and do it. I don't know whether you can add them after the fact or not, if that's not appropriate.
I don't think you can change an agenda after the fact either.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I think you can add supporting documents. I don't think you can
Change the optional topics.
change the actual name of the item.
Okay.
But you can add supporting documents if you want to. Okay, that'd be,
Yeah,
that's.
because it was definitely a supporting document. It was, and it's something you can look up online.
Great.
So you're gonna motion with that?
Well, I don't think we would approve them with, can we approve them with the amendments stated?
Yeah, we've done
Okay,
this.
so I'll approve the regular meeting minutes for,
Special meeting.
the special meeting minutes for August 27th, 2024, in accordance with the recommended changes articulated.
All right.
Second?
All right, first and a second, Chris.
Aye.
Shelley.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Rachel. Aye. All right, and next item is approval of regular meeting minutes for August 28th, 2024.
My stickler mentality has nothing to add for those minutes.
You know, I appreciate it. It's usually me having those weird comments.
I like it. Keeps us honest.
Yeah, I did no amendments to this one.
Okay.
There's no public here for comment on anything, so I'll go ahead and move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for August 28th, 2024.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, first and second, Rachel, aye. Chris?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
All right, so those are approved. And then we have superintendent and cabinet reports.
Okay, I'll make mine pretty quick. Have been attending all the back to school nights. It's been really wonderful. Impressed with the way our teachers handle things. Being able to get into quite a few of our teachers' rooms as well. So principals and teachers doing great work. I made it to everyone except for Wade Thomas. In lieu, I went to Wade Thomas's barbecue on Friday, so was able to get to a community event for all of them. Obviously White Hill tomorrow. Went and did ice cream social things at all 5 of the schools. Really excited just to get to know folks and hear from them. It's been something I'm considering doing every year moving forward. I won't stack them back to back every day, but kind of spread them over the fall. It's just a good way to make sure teachers have access directly to me and give me feedback and build a relationship. So I think that's good. I've been in all the first year teacher classrooms so far, just to go see how our first year teachers are doing. Usually send a quick little email to them, thanking them and letting them know that we are here to support them, particularly our Ed Services Department. And then we have negotiations on Friday that I'm really excited about. First day with RVTA, and I'm optimistic and hopeful that we can continue to build a strong relationship together.
Great.
Any updates from Cabinet?
I have nothing this evening.
Thank you, Chris.
I also enjoyed all the back to school nights. I missed Brookside's because I was at Wade Thomas, and I just want to shout out Jorge, who supported tech. I think at 4, well, after tomorrow night will be 4 of the back to school nights, but every back to school night this year had time beforehand for our Spanish speaking families to come in and get set up with Aries and Parent Square, and so that was just terrific to know.
That's great.
Thanks, Jorge.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. All right.
No updates.
Nothing from Mr. Bishop. Okay, so we will move on. Thank you, Cabinet. We have no continuation of closed session, so with that, I will, move on to, sorry, my thing is scrolling really weird today. We need to go to meeting review, which is future board topics and board direction. Do you have any comments, feedback?
I don't think I have any. The only thing I would say is if there are, just a continuation from our output, but if you all know of any of those kind of reports or want that are maybe perfunctory or that you do every year, you can definitely let us know as the liaisons with the JLAC, the Joint Legislative Committee, and now that we've got their antenna up on this, they were definitely interested in it. So we can be your advocates. If there are things like that, they're like, let's get rid of this thing.
Yeah, I think one future board topic, which I think is probably on your radar, Tyler, is to have some discussions around facilities and what we're gonna do with some of the funding we have.
Yeah, so just so you know, our process plan for Deer Park funding started with a conversation between me, Chris, and Des to brainstorm some initial things. We took that initial list of projects, we took it to cabinet, refined it, updated it, and we just took it to our principals on Tuesday. So from there, I'm going to create a survey to send out to families to get some input from families, and then we'll bring a list to the board, and you can help us kind of put some final prioritization on it before we start taking action. So
Great.
that all should happen this fall.
Wonderful, thank you.
I love that you're getting family input too. Thank you. Any other direction?
I was wondering if there's anything, if we do anything at Whitehill for the 6th graders that are coming in, to see if there's any gaps in what they're learning, to our Archie Williams point, right? Spanish from here, 8th grade to 9th grade. Are there any gaps in our elementary school curriculum, or are some schools doing something better than other schools for our entering Whitehill students? And identifying those schools who are doing something really well, or if there's any gaps that we can help improve, both at Whitehill, but also then at that school level. If we don't do anything like that, that might be nice to just kind of level set, who's entering Whitehill with what skills and how do we get them caught up.
Great.
All right, meeting debrief.
And I won't be here in 2 weeks.
Noted.
Noted.
I think I will either.
Okay, so as long as Ryan and Shelley and I can make it, we will have quorum.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to get there's going to be a period of about 4 weeks chunk that but I'll have to look and see how it overlaps.
Okay. So we may need to schedule a special meeting to get around regular stuff if we need to approve things, I guess. We'll see.
We can get it. I'll get it to Teresa. So if
Okay.
there's cross
All right.
triangulation and we need to make adjustments, we can do that
All
sooner
right.
than
Great.
later.
All right, and we'll need to check in with Ryan too, make sure we can attend. 2 of you are already good. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, that's helpful, thank you. And with that, we do not need to continue past 10:30, so I am going to adjourn our meeting at 9:07.